We're ranking the 7 levels of whiskey, from the cheap bottles poured for college parties to legendary drams that cost more than a used car. Whether it's harsh mixers, everyday favorites, rare bottles chased by collectors, or history sealed in glass, each step up is a leap in price and flavor, and in bragging rights. Why do most people stop at level 2? And what makes the highest levels taste like nothing else on earth? Let's begin at the bottom of the ladder, with the well whiskeys that define whiskey's starting line. Evan Williams' Green Label and Old Crow sit on the bottom shelf for a reason. These are the well whiskeys, the bottles bartenders reach for when someone orders a whiskey and Coke at happy hour, or when a college party needs to stretch a budget. Retailing for $10 to $15, these spirits are barely aged, usually under 3 years. What you get is all grain, a rough punch of ethanol, and not much nuance. In bars across America, well whiskey powers more than 40% of all whiskey pours, fueling mixers and shots with a flavor profile designed to disappear behind cola or ginger ale. No one is sipping these neat for pleasure. This is whiskey as utility, cheap, reliable, and forgettable, but absolutely essential at the starting line. Maker's Mark, Buffalo Trace, and Jameson are the bottles that fill most home bars and restaurant shelves. These are the standard pours, the daily drinkers that sit comfortably in the $25 to $50 range. Each bottle spends 4 to 8 years in a barrel, soaking up enough oak to smooth out the rough edges and bring in flavors like vanilla, caramel, and a touch of spice. This is where whiskey starts to taste good on its own, not just as a mixer. Nearly 90% of whiskey drinkers never climb higher than this tier. Bartenders at places like Attaboy in New York say that 7 out of 10 orders land right here. For good reason, these bottles are reliable, affordable, and always available. They deliver real barrel-aged flavor without breaking the bank or demanding a collector's hunt. Henry McKenna, 10-year bottled in bond and Taylor Small Batch are where whiskey stops being just a drink and starts being a statement. The Bottled in Bond Act of 1897 set out strict rules that still define this tier. 1 distillery, 1 distilling season, at least 4 years in a government-supervised warehouse, and bottled at exactly 100 proof. No mystery blends, no shortcuts, just a federal guarantee that what is in the bottle is the real thing. Henry McKenna. 10-year checks every box and then some, offering a decade of barrel time and single-barrel uniqueness. When it won Best in Show at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition in 2019, the price did not skyrocket overnight. It simply confirmed what enthusiasts already knew. Taylor Small Batch, named after the crusader behind the bottled in bond law, delivers a richer mouthfeel and deeper spice, all under that same government seal. For $40 to $60, you get a whiskey with transparency, consistency, and real backbone. This is the level where the value per dollar peaks. Blind tastings routinely put these bottles ahead of pricier, older options. For most whiskey fans, this is the sweet spot. Proof, pedigree, and price all in balance. No collector's chase required. Knob Creek 12, Macallan 12, and Lagavulin 16 stand as the first bottles where time itself becomes the main ingredient. These aren't just older versions of your daily pour. They are the result of 12, 16, or even 18 years of slow transformation inside oak barrels. Each year, about 3 to 5% of the whiskey inside disappears into thin air, a phenomenon distillers call the angel's share. By the time a barrel hits the 12-year mark, nearly a third of the original liquid is gone. Stretch that to 16 or 18 years, and half the barrel may have vanished. This relentless evaporation is what makes age-stated whiskey expensive. You are not just paying for what is in the bottle, but for every drop lost along the way. Inside those barrels, the whiskey is constantly changing. Early on, it soaks up vanilla and caramel from the charred oak. As the years pass, the flavors deepen. tannins and oxidized compounds build up, bringing notes of leather, tobacco, and dried fruit. Knob Creek 12 delivers a bold, oaky punch with baking spice and dark caramel. Macallan 12, aging in sherry casks, leans into dried fruit and soft leather. Lagavulin 16 takes it further, layering peat smoke over a backbone of seaweed and tobacco, a flavor only possible with time and patience. This is the age statement era. Bottles are priced from $80 to $200, justified not just by rarity, but by the economics of what is lost to the angel's share. The longer a whiskey sleeps, the more concentrated and complex it becomes, but also the more precious each bottle is. At this level, you are drinking the cost of time itself. Blanton's, Stag, and Weller 12 are the bottles that break the rules of supply and demand. Their retail price might sit at $50 or $100, but good luck finding them on a store shelf for that. These are the allocated whiskeys, produced in limited runs, released in small bursts, and instantly snapped up by collectors and flippers. The real action happens on the secondary market, where a bottle of Blanton's can fetch $300, Stag can jump to $400 or more, and Weller 12, with its cult following, regularly breaks the $1,000 mark. Scarcity is the engine here, not age or production cost. Buffalo Trace, the distillery behind all three, deliberately rations their release. Less than 10% of their output makes it to allocation lists. This feeding frenzy has even fueled black market schemes, like the infamous 2013 Pappygate heist, when an inside job stole nearly $20,000 worth of rare bourbon for illegal resale. For most drinkers, these bottles are more about social status than taste. Hype and value drive the price, but the value rarely matches the markup. Pappy Van Winkle 23, Michter's 20, and the Macallan 25 are not just expensive bottles. They are the living memory of whiskey's past, sealed in glass. These ultra-aged unicorns spend 2 decades or more in the barrel, surviving evaporation that can claim up to half of the original spirit. Every year the angel's share grows, and what remains becomes denser, darker, and more complex. The price tag tells the story. Pappy 23 often fetches $2,500 or more. Michter's 20 climbs past $4,000. Macallan 25 routinely sells for $3,000 or higher at auction. But what you are paying for is not just time, it is transformation. Inside the barrel, the whiskey's journey stretches far beyond vanilla and caramel. Over decades, oxygen seeps through the oak, turning sweetness into dried fruit, walnut, and finally rancio, a nutty, funky, almost sherry-like flavor that is more common in vintage cognac than in bourbon or scotch. The first sip can taste like old library books, antique furniture, or varnish. For some, it is an acquired taste. For others, it is a portal to another era. These bottles are rare because they survived the 1970s and the 1980s, when bourbon sales crashed and distilleries shuttered. Whole warehouses were emptied, barrels were dumped, and legendary names like Stitzel Weller faded into history. The few casks that made it through those lean years became the foundation of today's unicorns. When you pour a glass of Pappy 23 or Macallan 25, you are not just tasting whiskey, you are drinking liquid history, shaped by decades of patience, loss, and luck. A bottle of whiskey from 1929 isn't just a drink, it is a time capsule, sealed away while the world outside changed forever. Pre-prohibition medicinal pints, once prescribed by doctors under the Volstead Act, now surface at auction with price tags that run from $1,000 to over $50,000. These bottles were filled by distilleries like Shenley and Brown-Forman, stamped by the government, and tucked into tin boxes or cardboard sleeves for patients who needed a legal sip during America's dry years. Inside, the liquid often aged well beyond its original intent, sometimes for 14 years or more, carrying the fingerprint of extinct grains and vanished farms. The 1960s Dusties tell a different story. Bottles forgotten in basements, relics from the bourbon glut, when warehouses overflowed and brands like Wild Turkey or Old Tailor were just everyday pours. Today, collectors hunt these bottles for flavors that modern recipes cannot reproduce: high rye mash bills, old yeast strains, and oak notes shaped by a different era. But every time capsule comes with a risk. After 50 or even 100 years, the cork might crumble, the seal might fail, and the whiskey could be lost to time. Collectors estimate that up to half of these old bottles will not survive opening intact. Still, the thrill is undeniable. When a dusty finally yields its seal, what pours out is more than whiskey. It is the last trace of a world that no longer exists. At this level, whiskey becomes archaeology, provenance. Not proof is what matters. You are not just drinking history. You are finishing someone else's story. Across all 7 levels, one truth stands out. Whiskey's value comes from time, scarcity, and story, not just what is in the glass. Whether you sip daily pours or chase unicorn bottles, the journey reveals what we really crave: experience and meaning. So which level calls your name?